Mr. Wobst, what are the work opportunities for women and youths in rural areas?
We are looking in the African context still at many economies that are agricultural based, where agriculture still constitutes maybe 40%, maybe less of GDP, but employs 70–80% of the population and constitutes the source of livelihood for these families and farm households. So we truly believe that this is where you have to start. You have to look into opportunities of making agricultural occupations more viable, more productive, more gainful in order to generate the income that rural households need to merely survive, but then also accumulate the means to maybe invest into new production technologies. Agriculture is a broad area. It's not only cropping foodstuff. It's certainly a very diverse sector with other opportunities in terms of high value-added crops. It reaches out to agricultural chains. So we're looking into processing, agro-industry even, and then reaches, of course, into marketing issues and so on and so forth, all still agriculture related. But again, as we heard, we were talking about the rural economy per se and the employment opportunities in the rural non-farm economy as well. And this is tremendously important. So the opportunities that young people have who do have actually knowledge of agriculture, because that's where they are coming from, that's their family background and their experience, but then they might see actually an opportunity to engage into ITC business, but ITC as a support service for agriculture and rural development by and large, or financing or whatever it might be. So again, there are sort of secondary linkages to the agricultural sector. And finally, as the rural economies grow and become more vibrant as economic systems, you will have lots of other different opportunities for occupation for young people in these rural economies. And we are not sort of trying to, per se, sort of decrease migration or avoid migration. What we always say is migration is a phenomenon, an occurrence that you can't discuss away and cannot sort of eliminate through whatever kind of measures, but it needs to be managed. It needs to be managed well. So those people, young people, women, adults who do have a viable livelihoods option in an urban area or in a center, as we talked about today, they should leave the rural area and find their new livelihoods system in the urban areas. But what we try to work towards is to avoid that those people who do not have these opportunities and might end up in squatters or just with no employment in urban areas, to actually keep them in rural areas and try to find solutions for them to really earn their living where they are.
What are the factors that keep young people in rural areas?
Well, I would say young people do have all reason to actually stay where they are, because this is their community, this is their home, they have their families there, they have their extended families there, which are obviously in an African context very important. They have their communities, right? I mean, these communities also comprise of other social networks and systems, youth clubs and so on and so forth. So I guess young people do not leave because they want to leave where they were born and where they grew up. They want to leave because they do not really see any viable future for themselves where they are. So creating these opportunities, I think they would be rather happy to stay. Staying in a rural area does not mean that you are, somewhere way back without any connectivity to the rest of the country, the rest of the economy. I mean, that's what we were talking about in the Ethiopian context. Connectivity within 1 hour, 3 hours to urban centers increased in Ethiopia tremendously through the creation of the infrastructure, and this is what we actually have to provide. The potential infrastructure that supports livelihoods development, and then of course very concretely support in actually then establishing these livelihood opportunities through agriculture training, through business training, these life skills training for young people to become viable entrepreneurs go out, negotiate the price for their produce, and so on and so forth, or simply skills upgrading in other but agriculture areas in order to be able to work in an ICT context in a village or in a rural small town and so on.
What are the consequences of women and youth empowerment for men?
I wouldn't see this immediate conflict. We are concentrating on youth and women because they are particularly vulnerable and disadvantaged. I alluded to all these challenges for youth and women in my presentation. We are talking about a relatively low number, actually, in terms of unemployment. While youth is more unemployed in percentage terms than adults, still the unemployment rates are actually relatively low and comparable to European unemployment rates. This is a matter of measurement, certainly, but also it demonstrates that everybody needs a job in order to feed him or herself. But it also shows that this employment is not what we would like to see. It's jobs that basically represent underemployment. So few hours, low productivity, and so on and so forth. And what we strive for is to make these jobs that do, because they are not productive enough, generate a living wage, to actually transform them into decent jobs with a fair wage that you can feed your family with and then keeps you in the rural areas. I wouldn't necessarily see this as a competition with adult men. I think there we have the same issue. We just identified this as our sort of priorities to focus on. But I guess as the rural economies develop, the opportunities are there for everybody and everybody can tap into it. It's just that women and young people need a little bit more support and assistance explicitly that address their needs in order to have the same competitive edge as their male adult counterparts.